Hello, it's Jill Catherine here from GJ Beads, and today I'm going to make the tutorial for you for the Jacob's Ladder bracelet. It's a beginner's bracelet and it really is suitable as your very first project working with a needle and thread. Okay, it uses 4mm Miyuki Q beads, which are the white ones here that run down the centre of the bracelet. It uses some size 11 seed beads, which are the greeny colour ones, and then some drop beads to accent the sides. And these could be magatamas, as they are in this lilac one. They could be check drops, or they could be little tiny Miyuki drops. In fact, anything that's drop shaped. So you need to gather your supplies. You're going to need 5 grams, that's about 50 4mm Miyuki Q beads, 4 grams of size 11 seed beads, and about 50 teardrops. These can be check teardrops, Miyuki magatamas, or Miyuki drops. They all work equally as well. You're going to need some 9mm beading thread, a size 10 beading needle, and a 9 or a 10mm toggle clasp. So you want to cut yourself about 2 meters of beading thread and thread your beading needle. I would normally use a dark thread or maybe a white thread for this, but just so you can see what I'm doing and to show the thread path on the video, I've used a red thread. So you're going to work with single thickness thread, so you're going to have it doubled part of the way down, just as you've pulled it through the needle. You can just see my tail thread there, and then I've got a good length at the end that's just single thickness. So thread on 2 of your Miyuki seed beads, and you want to pull most of the thread through until you've got 8 inches, which is about 20 centimeters of tail thread left down here, and then come around in a circle. So your working thread's coming out the top, come around in a circle and come through both beads again from the bottom. And as you're pulling the thread through, you'll notice that the beads tend to lay hole to hole, but what you want to do as you tighten it up is for the beads to lay side by side. Okay, and just to help firm it up a little bit, if you want to go through the first bead again and then on through the second bead, just makes it a little bit firmer that first time through. Sorry about the camera wobble. Okay, so that gives you a nice firm start. So pick up a new Q bead and then come down through the last bead, pull all your thread through, and then come up through the last bead, the one that you've just added. Okay, so you've got 3 there now in a nice little ladder. So pick up a 4th bead, come around in a circle. This time you're going to stitch up through. Okay, and if it just pulls away a little bit, just tighten it up. Okay, and then down through the last bead. And you'll notice that it alternates. So this time we're going to pick up a bead and stitch down through the last one. It's a little bit twisted sometimes, and up through the new one. And you're going to repeat that all the way along the bracelet until you're happy with the length. Okay, I'll do a few more for you. So pick up a bead, you're going to stitch up through the last bead in the ladder. Gets twisted. And then down through the new bead. And then pick up a new one, and this time you're going to stitch down through the last bead. Just work at it to keep it tight, give it a little pinch and wiggle, and then up through the end bead. So keep adding beads like this until you've got enough beads to make your bracelet length. But of course what you've got to remember is how much the clasp is going to add. So if we look at this finished one, if you look at where the cubes finish here, yeah, you've probably got a good inch. We've got a ruler here, let's have a little look. So if you look at that, yeah, it's an inch. So from the last cube, the seed beads and the toggle clasp have added an inch to the length of the bracelet. Okay, so decide on the length of bracelet you want, knock off an inch for the clasp. Okay, I'll finish that and I'll be back. So I've added a long line of cubes and I'm happy that the length of that is 1 inch shorter than the final length that I wanted my bracelet. Okay, what you'll find is rather than counting the number of beads, because everybody's tension is different, so if I measure it, it'll give you a better idea. So it's just shy of 6.5 inches, which is about 163 millimeters. Okay, and because everybody's tension's different, the little gaps you see there, I don't know if you can see that one, the little gaps in between the beads are slightly different. So if I told you to put 30 on, your 30 may turn out a different length to mine because our tensions are different. Okay, so once you're happy with the length of it, we're going to attach the first end of the clasp. And the way we do that is pick up 5 of your size 11 seed beads. That's 3, 4, 5. Go through the hole in your toggle clasp and then have another 5 seed beads. So slide all of that down onto the last cube of your bracelet. Okay, and see where your thread's coming out of the last cube. All of this is going to come around in a circle at the end, and you just need to pass through that last cube again, and your needle needs to be pointing towards that thread, so that as you pull your remaining thread through, those seed beads and that toggle clasp make a nice loop on the end. Okay, so that was the clasp put on, and then we're going to do the decorating with the teardrops. This is the fun bit, and it's very easy. All you're going to do is just move away from that last cube, so stitch through the second cube from the end, and then pick up 3 seed beads, go through one of your drops and another 3 seed beads, and then on the same side of the bracelet you're going to take the next cube and pass through it, and really what you're doing is a little S shape decorating. Sorry, my hand's in the light, I think. Okay, that's on one side, and then you need to do another 1, 2, 3 through the teardrop, and 1, 2, 3, and then this time you're just going to go 1 cube to the left and come through that one towards you. Pull everything through. So can you see you've got 1 teardrop set on the left and 1 teardrop set on the right. Let's do that again. So we've got 3 seed beads, 1 teardrop, 3 seed beads, and pass through the next cube to the left. So this time we're going away from ourselves. again. So it's always 3 seed beads, 1 teardrop, 3 seed beads, and this time we're going to come towards us and pull it all through. So that's 3, a teardrop, and 3, and this time take the thread away. So I hope you can see that. You're just snaking your way through the bracelet. So we've come towards ourselves and away and towards and away, and you're working your way all the way down. So do that all the way down to the end of the bracelet, but don't stitch into the very last cube, because we're going to use that to put the other end of the bracelet on. So we've added the teardrop beads all the way down the length of the bracelet, and I've worked all the way down, but I haven't added a teardrop set into this last cube bead, because you're going to need that free to attach the second end of your toggle clasp. Okay, so once you've done that, just stitch through that last cube bead, but don't add any new beads. And then this time we're going to need to add 7 size 11 seed beads. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Go through the second side of your toggle clasp, that bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I think you can probably see where this is going. This is going to come around in a circle, so this time we've ended up coming out of the bottom side of this cube. It's going to come right round in a circle and come straight down through that cube bead on the end, and that gives us another nice loop to finish off our bracelet. Okay, the weak point on any bracelet is going to be where you've attached the clasp. So what I like to do is come through that set of beads again, so you've got 2 passes of thread through it, and it just reinforces it. Okay, so just come through the end ones and the toggle clasp, and then we're going to come down through the side ones. Quite like the red thread with this. Okay, and just give it a little pinch and wiggle to tighten it up. Okay, now because the cube beads have got quite large holes, we're going to do some little knots to finish off the tail of the thread, and I call them half hitches. So if you look in between the cube beads, let's just refocus. So look in between the cube beads. Can you see that little bit of red thread that's passing over the gap between the 2 cubes? What I'm going to do is stitch underneath that bit of thread with the needle, pull most of the thread through until you're left with a loop, and then stitch through your loop, and as you tighten it up, just nestle that little knot down on top of that little stitch. Okay, and I like to do maybe 3 or 4 of those little knots as I'm weaving away my tail thread. So go through the next cube, whoopsie daisy, right, so go through the next cube bead, okay, and I'll focus again so you can really see the detail of where we're going with that. So make a stitch and catch the thread that goes between the next 2 cubes. Okay, just fish out the little thread to make the loop and stitch back through the loop, and then as you tighten it up, just nestle it down between the cubes. Okay, so I'm going to come through the cube towards me. A bit harder now because we've got all of these loops of seed beads and teardrops on the side, but there's still room to do one. So that's 3. I think that'll do for today. And then I would weave through, because the cubes are big, I'm going to weave through some of the teardrops and the seed beads because the holes are smaller. Let's just get that tail thread out of the way. So don't ever cut your thread right on the knot, because it'll work itself loose as you're wearing the piece of jewellery and come undone, and there'll be tears and upset. It won't be good. Okay, so that's a couple of sets of seed beads and teardrops I've just stitched through. Okay, and then take your scissors and just trim off that tail thread. So you've also got an end here, which is where we started the bracelet, and do you remember I said leave an 8-inch tail? You're going to need to do the same thing with that. So rethread your needle. It's a challenge, isn't it? Okay, and then just, I think I'll go through that loop of beads again on the toggle clasp. Just weaving that tail thread through, and I'll show you here how to do a half hitch. It's always handy to do them in different places. Okay. So just stitch right into the loop and catch the thread in between the seed beads. Let's try that again. Make a stitch and catch the thread. You've got a loop, stitch through the loop, and then as you tighten it up, nestle that down in the gap between the seed beads. Okay, come through another couple of seed beads. So make your stitch, stitch through the loop, and as you tighten it up, just wiggle it away. See, even with leaving 8 inches of thread, I've still not got a very long end coming through my needle. I always think thread is a very cheap part of your design. So if you find that the needle is coming unthreaded with 8 inches at the end, well, just make it a bit longer. Try it with 10 inches next time. Okay, so we're just going to weave that tail through, come through one of those sets of teardrops and size 11s. Before we trim it off on this side. Okay, get your scissors in nice and close, nip off that thread, and there you have your very first Jacob's Ladder bracelet. Okay, it's very flexible, moves really nicely, and is going to look absolutely beautiful on anybody's wrist. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed watching my tutorial today. I will put links in the text below for the pattern if you'd like to have a full pattern rather than the video, but you've got the video there as a backup, and also there will be links there for the kits. So the colorways for the kits, this first one that we've made in the video tutorial is called Brushed Lavender. We've also got Lilac Glitter, got got some beautiful colour cubes in it and some very sparkly, the drops are actually magatamas on that one. Okay, the next one is Cranberry Iris. The drops on this are little Miyuki drops, so they're a little bit smaller. Then we've got a Cinnamon Swirl, Topaz Tide. Oops, move it up a little bit so it all fits in. And then we've got Fire Red. Okay, the kits contain everything you need to make the bracelet. So you'll have your instructions, you'll have needles, thread, your 3 different types of beads, the toggle clasp and your instruction sheets. All you're really going to need to add to it is the bead mat and a pair of scissors. I really hope you've enjoyed watching my tutorial on Jacob's Ladder bracelet. Please subscribe, and I hope to see you for the next video tutorial.